lucky that we have guys that were able to handle a job like that and do that, because if we had to put it out for bid or do it through other means, I'm sure it would have cost a lot more.
Absolutely.
And they did a great job, and they worked hard at it, and I think it's going to be a great addition when it finally finishes up.
Absolutely. And just
Yes, dear.
to caution
I agree.
people, if you go look at it now, it looks like it's this really big, major thing.
Well, it's under
not go-
construction.
It's not going to look that way when it's done, so just to kind of calm people a little bit.
You know, you have 40-foot steel
Correct.
beams hanging across the river like that.
Yeah.
It looks like a
It
construction
looks
site.
massive, yeah. Salvage yard ordinance, I just wanted to update, because I had heard from one or two of you looking for some updates. Preston has sent out several letters of enforcement to our most, what he deemed our most egregious properties in town. He's heard back from 7 of the 10 who have responded and are working toward compliance with him, which is a really great number. We were kind of surprised to get that high of a response back. 2 of them have not responded at all, so he'll be taking that to the next step. And then there's a third one that we're going to work, the town under our enforcement budget will work to help them, along with some other community organizations, to help clean up some elements of the property that we can do without liability to the town. So just to update you on that, once we wanted to start with a small number, relatively small number, processing 2. These 2 will likely go a long distance to get judgment. So we didn't want to have that be a large number. So we're testing the waters with 2, and that will get us started. This is new territory for us. Thank you, Sil. New territory for us with this, so I'm sure that'll be coming to you as we are starting to spend money in the legal process. Town garage work is proceeding, new roof is on.
Julie, could I stop you for just 1 minute?
Yep,
Can you tell me the status of, and maybe Preston didn't send the letter here, but to the 103 South area that has campers and cars and?
I think he's reached out to them, Lee. I don't know that that was one of the 10 where we sent a notice of violation, but there are several where he has just kind of sent a letter, and I will follow up with him if that was, I know they did not get an NOV, but I
Okay.
will follow up with where he's at with that one.
I
Thank
heard
you.
that property changed owners recently.
Okay.
So I don't know if that may be a problem or not.
That may be posed an issue. Okay. All right, I'll check with him tomorrow.
Thanks.
Yeah. Town garage, work is proceeding, the new roof is on. And Jeff can maybe speak more to this, but the water sewer department got the sprinkler line to the building and inside the building, ready to be hooked onto by the company that would come in and do that. The other thing that I believe was completed, looks like it was completed today, started yesterday maybe, was the grit separator and that connection.
The manhole and the grit separator, they're in the ground, and they finished putting them together today. Tomorrow morning, first thing, we're going to fill them with water for the
Yeah.
hydrostatic test. And the engineer's coming down tomorrow morning, and he's going to pressure test the sprinkler line and the waste line in the grit separator, so. But that's been quite a project, 'cause
It's been quite a project, and we were able to undertake it ourselves, which did, in the long run, save us some money by our guys doing some of the work, so.
Great.
Yep, so
Thank
that's
you.
progressing, slowly but surely. It's hard to find contractors to be working on highway. Popple Dungeon Bridge, we went out to the second round of bids. They're being analyzed before we release who lowest bid was, but this second round showed that the bids are about 100,000 over what we had allocated. So I'm looking now, I'm working on capital tomorrow, so we'll figure out where that 100 can come out of capital next year.
What was the original number that we were talking about?
The original total,
650?
no, it was 600, it's 750 in grant funding, and we have 150, so 900.
Okay.
and it's coming in about 100 over that.
Plus, we're running out of time.
And that's
Wow.
engineering and that's everything, so.
We're running out of time to keep that grant money?
To keep, no, the grant money, we're secure. It's federal money,
Okay.
so once it's allocated, it's allocated. We don't need to worry about that part of it, but we do pay rental on that temporary bridge, so we want this bridge done. And it's a pain in the neck for our guys to plow it. So it definitely will go to construction next year. We'll get done with it. It's only 100 grand over. We can find that in capital, I'm sure.
We're approaching $1 million bridge pretty quick.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a big bridge. It's a big project. It's not a minor thing. And we have 3 grants funding it.
It's
so.
not the first time in my memory that we had to work on it, because there used to be a
Yeah.
giant culvert there.
Yep.
And it got washed out.
Yep.
And washed down the brook. And I can't remember what year it was, but I remember it went.
Is it Irene?
No, it was before
It was
that.
before Irene.
It's been a problem for a while.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be a good one to have done. It's a 75-year bridge. None of us are going to be dealing with it again, so,
Yeah, we only got 48, what is it, 48 other ones in town?
exactly. No, 70
I thought it was
something.
more than
Yeah,
that,
we got
yeah.
78 bridges. We got 77 others to
Oh,
do.
okay.
Yeah.
And then Yosemite. So for Yosemite, there have been some Lillian came in to see me this week, or the end of last week. There are some individuals in town who have stepping forward and expressing interest in the Yosemite Firehouse Museum project. One of them, serious interest, with some financial backing to it. One of the individuals has offered to set up the 501c3 for the group, but they need to get the work done before tax season. So we need to kind of have some conversations about that next step, and what that looks like. Before they set up the articles of incorporation, there's bylaws and those types of things that need to be written. I have seen a draft of the mission statement, which certainly is something that I think you would agree with. But I want to know kind of how the board, just a general consensus of how the board wants to proceed. I'm feeling like it might be easier if I just had one or two of you that worked with me and with Lillian and the individuals that she's got to kind of talk through. I'm thinking more the operational pieces of how the two entities are going to work together on a municipal building and project. Or we can just have it be the whole board. I'm just thinking it might be easier to have a little working group, and didn't know if there were one or two of you that wanted to just work with me on it. I don't think you need to appoint a subcommittee and all that stuff.
Yeah, we have
just-
2 volunteers on Zoom already.
There, so Heather and Lee.
Heather and Lee?
Yep.
Okay, perfect, perfect.
Unless there's others in the, I can't see the whole board there.
Well, that's
Are we-
true.
Are we arm wrestling? Are there others that,
Where did our
No, the rest
picture
of us
No,
are
that-
hiding under our desks.
oh, okay.
The teacher doesn't call on us.
Okay, so Heather and Lee, perfect. So then I will get a hold of you guys either tomorrow or Friday. I'll get a hold of Lillian, and we'll start with just us sitting down and kind of talking through some of the logistics.
Yeah, there's.
And then we can just report back to the full board,
That's what
right?
I'm thinking. I just think it would be easier.
Yeah, for all the logistics involved and all the details and everything goes on, because I imagine that a working relationship like this is going to have a lot of specifics on it that has to be spelled out before we go forward with a building like that. It's kind of like we do with the library. We give them money, part of the town thing, we maintain the outside of the building, the mechanics and everything inside. So what's going to be our relationship with this building? I mean, we maintain it, we make sure everything's okay with it, we've been upgrading it as we go along, but this museum piece is there's a lot more to it than that.
And I think it's
So-
more the operational piece of it is where I see not issues, but we just need to work out the details.
Well, I think that that's a super positive event that some people are stepping up. So I don't know who to thank, but I'm sure there's plenty of time to do that later, but that's very exciting to me.
Absolutely.
too.
All right, so I'll get a hold of both of you.
And
Thank
because
you.
it's going to be open to the public, it's going to have a restroom in there, so it's going to have water and
Yes.
sewer in there.
Yeah,
And I'm pretty sure, I know we're the hook on the water, but I think it's an old galvanized line going across the road there.
Okay.
So we may have to directional drill or something. I don't know if I
Yeah.
can get through there. And
Yeah.
fortunately, the sewer tap is on that side of the road, right where the parking area is, so.
Jeff Metcalf drew drawings.
Yep.
He didn't get into the detail of the water sewer stuff, but there are some drawings. And as they get to that point, we're nowhere near that point
Right.
at this point. We're a couple years away, I think, from actually opening and doing stuff.
Yeah.
But to get grant funding, we need to, they're at the point now where they need this 501c3 because they've got people interested in donating and interested in being involved, and they need that 501c3 now. And there's some grants that 501c3s can apply for that municipalities can't, that they could take advantage of.
And if you get people interested, now's the time to grab them.
Exactly, we
Yeah.
want to get it while the momentum's there.
And do what we can to help
Yep.
them along
Exactly.
in their journey and stuff.
Exactly.
I mean, the land was acquired, that was a big thing alone.
Huge steps have been taken, and we're primed for the application to the Bruin Grant, which could get us $100,000, which would do the windows and the doors, and, I mean, that would be huge. So we're set for that to be a good application, so. Okay, Heather and Lee, I'll get a hold of you tomorrow or Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have for old business.
That was quick on how they volunteered for that one, that was great.
It was.
Thanks, guys. Anybody else have any old business that they would like to bring up at this time? No? The next item is the Chester Snowmobile Club, their yearly landowner permission request to use town property and town roads. Town property being the Chester Town Forest, where they go through in a few places, and the town roads, well, I mean, we usually end up reading all this. It seems like the list is getting shorter, I think. I'm not sure. Maybe they're getting more off into the woods.
Mr. Jewett can answer that question.
That's pretty good timing, Dick. Just in
Perfect time.
I'm just going to read off the list. 300 yards of Smokeshire Road from the Fourth Bridge North to the Snowmobile Bridge. Marks Drive from Les Allen's property to the far end of the road. Blue Hill Road from the end of Ken Getter's Field across the town bridge onto Vales Field at a distance of about 120 yards plus or minus. Across the turnaround on the old Forge Road. 80 feet of Ethan Allen Road just past Malfunction Junction. We're moving off the road for about 100 yards. 120 feet of Nudist Camp Road at the start of Williams Road and all of Williams Road. Is that pretty much every year the same ones, or are less, more?
I don't think it, you gave me any more to get off.
Hasn't changed in a while, I don't think.
How's it been working out with the landowners in general on the trails? Everything's been,
Well, we had one switch that we're working on now, that's pretty good time.
yeah.
We have to go on the round, we, some other place.
So we need a motion to approve the permission
And appoint you to sign.
and appoint me to sign.
I'll make a motion to approve the landowner request by the Snowmobile Club of Chester, and that Arnie will be able to sign on behalf of the select board.
Second.
Second.
Just a little too slow on the Zoom part.
Wow.
Sorry, Heather, and that was pretty quick.
Jeff, you're really fast.
Lee Gustafson's the motion. Jeff Holden's the second. Is there any further discussion on this? Any questions for Dick while he's here, or any concerns, everything? Hope
May
it's,
I interrupt? We couldn't hear from whoever spoke from the public. We couldn't hear them.
It's Richard Jewett.
there was a question about the amount of roads, whether it was less or more than other years, and it's basically the same. And it was Richard Jewett that was responding for the Snowmobile Club. And I'm sorry, the next time someone speaks, I'll make sure that they get up to the microphone so everybody can hear them out there. Thanks for pointing that out for me. Any other discussion on this? Any other questions or concerns? All those in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? All set.
Right above where I printed, yep. You want this now, Dick?
I'd like to thank the
It's
snowmobile.
great what they do.
All
It's a
they do.
lot of work. Thank you, Dick.
Yeah. All the volunteers and all the work that go into it.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dick.
Thank you.
That was quick.
That's quick.
Well, this town's pretty generous with the Snowmobile Club. I think it's fabulous.
Well, it's amazing the amount of work that goes into keeping all the trails
That's
groomed.
right.
And the work days that they have and the bridges that they build and everything else that goes on. And
Right.
it really helps the town of Chester in a big way because
Yeah.
they're kind of known for their quality of the trails that they maintain and the size of the club. And it's brought, I think, a lot of positive comments about the town and, you know, bringing in tourist dollars towards it too and stuff with everything that goes on. The next item is the Springfield Regional Development Corporation is here. Bob Flint and Amanda Sidler are here to give us a presentation regarding a working challenges presentation. And I believe it was a grant that was about a year ago from the Federal Reserve or something like that in Boston. And they're here to update us and fill out some information regarding it.
Sure. No, thanks, Arnie. And just I'll echo the comments about the Snowmobile Club, and it's a real regional asset, the work that the VAS Club does here. So good job. So I'm Bob Flynn from Springfield Regional Development Corporation. So a few years ago when we had our annual meeting, and this was back when people actually gathered in person, Matt Barowitz from the Department of Labor spoke. It was at Newsbank in the conference center, and we talked about the term workforce participation. So that's the percentage of people who are eligible to work that are actually participating in the workforce. So nationally, again, this is pre-pandemic, the workforce participation rate in the United States was declining, has been declining. In this region, in Vermont, this region in the Northeast Kingdom had seen steep declines over the years about workforce participation. So as the chairman mentioned, this region is one of 4 at the moment, soon to be joined by 4 more regions that have received a grant from the Federal Reserve of Boston for what's called the Springfield Area Working Communities Challenge. So working communities is something that the Fed has done in urban areas. Vermont is the first time they're trying to do this in a rural state, and they're actually just started work with the state of Maine on a similar project. So this region, and Amanda will describe the region in a moment, applied for and received a planning grant, and then was chosen as one of the first 4 for a 3-year project to try and move the needle on helping low and moderate income people address barriers to getting in the workforce and staying in the workforce. Now, obviously, the pandemic has exacerbated these challenges, and it really has brought to the fore some of the things we already knew about before. So in this labor market area, for example, and I mean, we all know anecdotally, people can't find employees. The labor force is down 1,249 people from the start of the pandemic. So that's almost 12%. So our workforce participation rate in this area is 56%. The state has seen a decline of, and I'm doing this from memory, I think 26,000. And the state percentage is maybe like 62%. So this region still is trailing the state, but both of those have seen a decline from before the pandemic. So to us, it makes the work that we're involved with, and we're a partner in this, and we're a coordinating entity. Amanda works for SRDC, but really works for the partners on this core team, are trying to do what we can to move that needle a little bit, again, in trying times, and it's even when we're out of trying times, to help more people be productive members of the workforce, and which will certainly have a positive impact on the area economy and to help our area employers. So with that, I'll turn it over to Amanda Sidler.
Hello, and thank you for having me. Could I have the next slide, please? So Bob, as Bob already explained, we have received this grant from the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, and it's a 3-year grant, and it's roughly $300,000. And like Bob said, there are 4 other communities that are also have received similar grants, but the unique thing about the Working Communities Challenge is that each of those communities are actually addressing different challenges within their own region. So you might hear about other Working Communities Challenge projects, like in the Brattleboro area, that have some similar commonality between them, but for the most part, we're all working on very different projects. Next slide, please. So before I get into the details around what we specifically are working on for the Springfield region, I just want to show that this is what we are defining as the Springfield region. It is the 16 towns in the AHS district. So as you can see, there's quite a few towns here, and I think that for the most part, they often consider themselves to be their own sort of micro-communities, and so what we're trying to do is kind of bring them together and sort of demonstrate that we're all experiencing very similar challenges, and we're all kind of in this together. Next slide, please. So hopefully you can see that well at home. So essentially, again, our mission is to sort of help increase workforce participation by addressing the challenges that often prevent people from finding and maintaining employment. Next slide, please. And so some of the challenges that we identified very early on in this process were access to things like transportation, childcare, housing, technology and education, as well as dealing with being in recovery or substance use. Next slide, please. So our strategy for addressing these challenges is to bring together employers and social service stakeholders to create a wraparound holistic approach to addressing these challenges. And by doing that, for the individuals that are encountering them, the idea is that no matter who they go to for help, that person will either know the answer to their question or know who to go to get the answer. Next slide, please. So in terms of who's involved in this, so as Bob said, I as the coordinator we as SRDC are one of the backbone organizations that applied for this and have received it and are kind of guiding the work. I as the coordinator have a core team that functions similarly to a board that kind of help guide my work. And they came together very early on, as Bob said, after the presentation for the annual meetings a couple of years ago to start identifying these challenges. And so our core team consists of the Vermont Department of Labor, the River Valley Tech Center, obviously SRDC, as well as the Agency of Human Services, the Vermont Packing House as a private employer, and the REACH Up program. But in addition to that, we also have a large extended network of partners who have joined us in this work. And this is not a complete list. On our webpage, there is a complete list if you're curious. But just to name a few, Vermont 211, the Springfield Area Parent-Child Center, the Mount Ascutney Regional Commission, all of these different representatives from these organizations have all kind of stepped in to help us with this work, and they've been a huge support, and they've kind of helped make us successful so far in this first year of receiving this grant. And I am very fortunate that I have a very strong and collaborative team in this process that's helped this really move this work forward in a positive direction. Next slide, please. So to kind of get into the inner workings of this, we have 2 subcommittees currently that are dedicated to specifically looking at the challenges with transportation and childcare. So we have our Transportation Task Force, and that includes stakeholders like the Mount Ascutney Regional Commission, the Vermont Department of Transportation, the Mover, also known as Southeast Vermont Transit, members of the local community health teams for both hospitals, and representation from REACH Up. And then on the other side, we have a number of community stakeholders in the childcare world that have participated in our Child Care Counts group. And these groups are open, like other members of the community are welcome to join. They're not fixed subcommittees. But essentially, the goal of both subcommittees is to sort of understand and really map out what the existing challenges are and make sure that we understand how they impact individuals, to document and understand how the resources are being utilized or how they are not, because we are a resource-rich region, and then to kind of figure out where are the gaps, what needs to change, and kind of how we can move that needle forward on creating real systemic long-term change. Next slide, please. And so now I'm going to get into kind of some of the specific resources and initiatives that we've developed. Next slide. So I would say that one of the most important pieces of this work is our employment research study. So as Bob mentioned, trying to sort of capture a number of what the workforce participation rate looked like has been very challenging because we are an arguably small region and lines are drawn in many different ways in Vermont. It's been very hard for us to capture accurate and timely data around not only what the workforce looks like, what employment looks like, but also the challenges that we're trying to quantify, so things around transportation and childcare. So we have been given the unique opportunity to create that data ourselves. And we have had the good fortune of having a gentleman volunteer to work with us. He's a data analyst. He's from our region, so he understands, what we're dealing with. And he is volunteering his time and knowledge to help us create this research study. Next slide, please. And so the concept is that we have developed our own sort of questions to quantify the information we're trying to gather. And the advantage is that we will hopefully be able to use this as we move through and try to recover from COVID to help both inform employers around conversations about recruitment and retention, but then also to kind of capture the experience of people who are living these challenges every day. And so how it functions, we have two sort of cohorts, one of employers and then one of private residents. And every 2 months, I release a survey. They ask similar questions, but essentially they are around, how many staff do you have? What is their turnover rate looking like? What are the challenges that they're encountering? And then on the flip side, for the residents, there's very similar questions around, like, what are you experiencing? And for the individuals that participate, they will receive a $40 stipend after every survey completed. And our intention is to have this research study operate until the summer of 2023 so that we can capture the seasonality of Vermont. So far, I have over 150 people registered to participate, and so we've been really excited about that. And we are still accepting both employers and individual participants. And to participate, any employer can join us, no matter what size. And likewise for individuals, they can join regardless of their employment status. Even if they're retired, they're welcome to join regardless of income status. So it's open to everyone. And so far, we've been really excited. We haven't generated any data yet, but our intention is to share that back with the employers that participate with us, again, to kind of help inform those conversations and to really sort of quantify what we're experiencing. Next slide, please. Another important area of work has been our focus on childcare. Early on, when we were starting this project, the pandemic was a huge presence, and as we all know, it has exacerbated a lot of these challenges. So one of our sort of responses to the COVID crisis was to create a childcare assistance fund. So for families in our region, regardless of their income status, they can receive this one-time grant to kind of help cover costs related to childcare. Next slide, please. So there's a few pieces of eligibility requirements, but the most important thing to know is that, again, there is no income requirement, so any family can access this, and it is distributed through our partners at the Parent-Child Center. So if a family needs this service, let's say they have either a back bill or maybe even to cover, a registration fee, they can access this fund, and our intention is to kind of help those parents, typically parents, often women, either be able to re-engage in the workforce or to keep their jobs. Very early on, we were kind of hearing from a lot of employers that childcare was a huge challenge. And what we heard from childcare providers was that the times that they were available, the staff that they had just did not meet the capacity or the schedules that were needed. And then slowly over the course of 2021, that challenge kind of dropped off from the employer perspective. And what we kind of collectively realized was that those people were leaving the workforce. And so our hope was for this fund to kind of help those families be able to stay in the workforce. So if anybody's out there and they're listening and they're interested, please feel free to contact the Parent-Child Center and they can help you with the application process. And there's also more information about eligibility on our webpage. And I have information about that at the end. Next slide, please. And our free laptop program was also sort of an initiative that was in response to the COVID crisis. Whenever the world transitioned to being virtual, there were many people who kind of got left behind. For a lot of low and moderate income individuals, they relied mostly on their phones to access digital information. But if you were trying to seek a job, that was not going to be sufficient, or even going back to school. And so our free laptop program is designed for low income individuals who are living in our region to be able to access that technology, remove that barrier, and help facilitate them achieving their employment goals. To participate, one of our partner organizations serves as a referral source, so that way we know that there's someone there to support that person through achieving those employment goals. And this program is still operating. Both this and our Child Care Assistance Fund have been really helpful in illuminating other potential barriers and challenges, and have allowed us and our partners to direct those individuals and families to other resources. So it's been helpful in a lot of ways. And if anyone's interested in participating in this, you can, contact one of our partner organizations, or again, check our website, and our Facebook page has information about it as well. Next slide, please. So another resource that we're offering, but more employer-focused, is our employer resource group. Right now, this group is on hiatus, but we'll be re-offering it in 2022. And it's essentially a monthly group for employers of any size to kind of get together. And initially, a lot of the focus was sort of on understanding the rapidly changing COVID regulations and the impact that that was having on employers. But it has transitioned to also being an informative group to better understand basically all HR-related topics. Some of the things that we've covered have been onboarding best practices and how to prevent turnover. It's a networking opportunity, but it's also an opportunity for employers who maybe don't have a designated HR person to kind of come and learn some information they may not have access to, and also learn from their peers. And so again, this group isn't currently meeting, but we will be relaunching in January of 2022. Next slide, please. And so lastly, we are always open to hearing from our community. We want to know what are the challenges that people are experiencing. The number on the screen, which is 802-885-3005, is a number that anyone can call and leave a message about, if they have a question or if they have an experience, but also you can follow us on Facebook. And again, visit our webpage, and you can always contact me, Amanda Sidler, if you have any questions or just kind of want to share what you're seeing and what you either as an employer or an individual are experiencing, or if you just have a question. If you're like, I can't get to work, I will try to help you solve that problem. So that's it for me. And I want to thank you all for having us here tonight. And I have some packets of information about some of the resources I talked about. I'll leave those behind if you want to share those. So thank you. And please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you.
So Julie asked about, can the town apply as an employer? Yes, other towns have.
Did I? I thought I did, or did I not? Okay, we talked about it, and I need to do it.
So the question was about the town registering for the data cohort or the longitudinal study as an employer. So yes, please. I'll mention Working Fields briefly.
Oh, yes.
So one of the programs we've helped to facilitate and introduce to this region is called Working Fields. It's actually an organization from up north that acts as, I'll call it a temp agency for people trying to re-enter the workforce that are dealing with substance issues. So it de-risks it for the employer. So it's like a temp agency, right? You don't have to take on the workers' comp. You don't have to do all the things you have to do if you hire someone as an employee. So if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But it also is a mechanism for someone in that situation to be able to get back and to have a job again. So they're working very closely with the Turning Point Center in Springfield. And to date, I think we've placed 12 people at least in the region. So that's, a good deed. And I also want to mention that some employers are starting to be, out of necessity, more flexible. So Amanda mentioned the kind of passing in the night sometimes of childcare challenges and shift schedules. So a couple of employers have come up with parent hours. So, it's not you show up at 9, you leave at 5. You show, if it's, we don't really care as long as the work gets done. So, you can come in for 4-hour blocks of time, and maybe one day it's morning, another day it's afternoon. You can work around schedules. That's fine for some businesses that have the flexibility as long as the productivity is done. Other more conventional ones maybe don't have that flexibility, but just how can people be more creative to be able to get the work done, to give people the employment opportunities and allow them to have their lives and all the variables going on in their lives. Any questions we can answer?
Sounds exciting. I can't wait for it to be going like crazy.
What was that, Lee?
This sounds really great. Thank you. Great presentation.
No, we appreciate it and happy to come back anytime.
Bob, is this a problem like specific to Vermont? It's all over the place, isn't it?
Yeah, and this quickly gets into a swamp, right? But nationally, nationally there's been an issue, and the whole debate about is it because of the extra employment benefits or, I'm not going there.
Yeah.
But as I said, the motivation for this was, as I said, nationally, workforce participation has been declining pre-pandemic. In this region particularly had seen a decline. So let's say the pandemic never happened. I wish that was the case. We had a problem. We have a problem with not enough people in the workforce, as well as a graying population, as well as a bunch of other things. So for the good of the order, we've got to have, I would think, more people being productive and generating revenue and generating income.
I will say that one of the problems that we know that has been identified as a major challenge is access to childcare. In March of this year, Vermont had the highest rate of unemployment for women, and it was at 74%. And I believe that it actually got higher before it went back down. And so that's something that, like, prior to the pandemic, the lack of availability for childcare and the cost were a huge problem, and it's only gotten, it's gotten severely worse. And so again, like, employers are seeing that in real time, and one of the things I think we've both realized, Bob and I, in this process, is that employers are seeing these challenges every day with their staff and trying to help them solve these problems, but no one's clocking it, like, no one's documenting it, so we're here to kind of try to wrap our minds around that. But I would say that childcare is a major contributing factor, and people have kind of underestimated how big the impact has been there.
It sounds like some really important services that you offer to help people get into the workforce and for employers to get employees. And then I guess it looks like a lot of the data is going to be collected over the years to see exactly how everything's working and to go forward from there, so you have some kind of benchmark to work off and to see what's happening. Is it improving? Is it getting worse or not? It's a challenge for sure. We have a lot of challenges.
And we haven't even talked about housing or some of the other things that, you know, so that those are coming.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation, and that's some important information out there.
Is there a way we could get what you've just presented in, sent to us in a PDF or something so we can have it to refer to?
I have the PDF. I'll email it to you all tomorrow.
Oh, thanks, Julie.
You're welcome.
And I think a lot of it's on your website with the Springfield Regional Development Corporation. There's a whole section on it that has all that information that looked familiar and stuff. For people that are interested or looking for help, or employers, or both, right? I mean, that's everybody involved in the workforce, one end or the other. All right. Thank you very much for the presentation, guys.
Take care.
It's budget time of year.
Thank you.
Our general fund budget are in your package. It's the first review. And Julie, can you take us through it?
I can. I don't know how much detail you want to get into at this point. There's still numbers missing, important numbers missing, like
big?
Capital,
Are they big
all the
numbers?
capital numbers.
Are they big numbers?
Well, they're all the capital contribution numbers, so
Okay.
yes. And a few have been answered today. Tomorrow, the office is closed, so I'll be working on the capital plan tomorrow and Friday. So, and some numbers, like I said, some of the revenue lines got filled in a little better today. Everybody's behind, so getting some of these numbers has not been easy. It's been a challenge on some ends. But so far, as far as the expenses of 2021, we're not too bad. 2022, going into 2022, department heads have done a really good job about, again, knowing that we've got a couple years of hurdle, looking at just what's needed, and keeping costs down. Of course, costs of things have gone up. We are looking heavily at a lot of different grant programs that have opened up. One of them being, an example is culverts in highway. Culverts doubled in price. So a line that's normally $6,000 had to go to $12,000, then it may have even had to go to $17,000 for culverts. So Better Back Roads grants just opened up. Andover Road, Lovers Lane Road are both eligible roads for that. That would save us about 10 to 12,000 in culverts. So that line will be able to go back down to the 6,000. So we're looking at different programs that are out there. Some of the Homeland Security communications grants are opening up. That will certainly help the communication lines within police, fire, and ambulance. The repeater, the base stations, the mobile radios are all due to be replaced. We're talking a couple $100,000 by the time you're done with that whole system. So those grants have opened, we'll be applying for that. So there are programs that we're looking at that I think will be very helpful coming into 2022's budget, so the timing should be good. Capital, I've been toying with it, but I keep getting interrupted, so like I said, the office is closed tomorrow. That will be my day to focus on capital. It's not too bad, because there are some things that are paid off. We didn't add a lot to capital last year, we paid cash. Kirby has made the decision that for 2022, he does not feel that we need to replace a dump truck next year, that we could skip a year. So we will not have that expense, that will be helpful. We need to replace a pickup, but that dump truck expense isn't going to be needed. So there's a few of those things. Amanda's going to try to limp the ambulance along one more year. Again, that will be helpful, pushing that out to 2023 potentially as well. So I don't believe that capital is going to be a shocking number. It should be a little bit less.
Julie,
but
can
we
I-
are adding Popple Dungeon, so.
So can I just ask,
Yep.
relative to the capital budget or the capital plan,
Yeah.
if we're pushing these expenses off another year, what is that going to do to that giant hump we have to cross?
So if we do not buy a dump truck until 2023, then the first payment would be in 2024.
Okay.
Same thing with ambulance,
And when's the hurdle we have to cross?
2023.
Okay,
2023 is our last tough year.
okay.
So the advantage, if we were to buy them next year, the first payment would be in 2023.
right,
So
okay.
pushing them 1 year will be helpful. Now, we've increased the vehicle maintenance lines in both of those budgets just to cover in case, there's a little extra repair needed. But to start pushing back a year on the highway, on the dump trucks, this is the year.
Yeah.
2022 is the year to skip.
Okay.
Well, he seems like Kirby's aware of which truck
Oh,
he
yes.
could push or, take
Correct.
a little further because of
Yeah.
the conditions in or
The
the
road,
miles on it. and stuff.
right, the two or three trucks, I can't remember, that do salt, that do the main roads, are the ones that really need to be done. They're the ones that get the biggest wear and tear. The dirt road ones don't see the salt. And this year is a dirt road one, so that one can be pushed a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And he's had the truck looked at. He brought it down to LMB to I think it's LMB, to review, just to make sure we didn't have anything on the verge of going bad, and they felt we would be fine. So he has had it reviewed.
It's going to be a tough year. When I was looking at the budget and stuff, diesel costs,
Oh, yeah.
fuel costs.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're all doubling and stuff. And then you give the example of culverts
Yep.
doubling in price.
Yep.
That's true right on down the line on all kinds of things. And I imagine it's going to show up on chains and maintenance items and everything else that's out there. It seems like the average is doubling in price.
Well,
It's-
anything petroleum-based is doubling, and culverts have a petroleum base to them. Tires is the other thing that we're going to start seeing go through the roof, are tires. So I don't know if you want to go through this line by line. Starting next week, the department heads will be coming in, talking in detail about their budget. Next budget review, we should have all the numbers will be done. So it's entirely up to you how you want me to. There are some things I've added. I don't know if you want to talk about those things.
Facilities person, I saw
My
that in there.
facilities person.
Well, I see the explanation in there
Yeah,
about
it's-
how much we spend for maintenance on things. And when you hire an outside agency to come in and do something, or you can do it in-house, there's a big difference on what it would cost. Like
There
if
is.
you're going to do your own radiant system or hire somebody,
Who's not available.
But-
Well, that's the point, Arnie, is
Yeah.
it makes sense for us to have those in-house capabilities because it enables us to save money, number one, but we can always use extra hands elsewhere when there's not necessarily a specific need.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, it makes sense. Yeah, it's going to cost a little bit more money in the short run, but in the long run, it's going to save us a bunch of money.
I think it will, and I think the biggest, one of the biggest assets is that this person would be able to get all of the municipal buildings on a maintenance plan. So now our maintenance is proactive, not reactive, which always saves you money if you can.
The only
be proactive.
question I had is, where are you going to find a person like this? Because it seems like this person would have to have a whole bunch of qualifications.
I already have, we already know somebody.
Okay. Okay, great.
We already actually have the perfect fit. Now, whether or not he'll still be able to take it, we don't know. But there are people out there like this.
Okay.
We found that when we were interviewing for the sewer position, and I was looking for that extra, we wanted them to have the contract. I was amazed of all the people that we interviewed, they all had those skills.
Oh, wow.
So there's actually people out there that do have those capabilities. Yeah. Yeah, so we really would, but I know, 2022, it would be really good to have it, but we'll see how the budget falls out at the
See
end.
how the numbers come down at the end to see where we
Correct.
are. I mean, it's part of the
Correct.
wish list, but
It is, and it would be a big help, and I think in the long run, it would save money. I can't sit here and tell you how much money it's going to save, but it will save money in the long run. It's just switching how we take care of things, really.
the idea of asset management and knowing what you have and what it needs to fix and stuff. And I remember, Jeff, me and you went to that
Mm-hmm.
water service thing, and their big thing that they talked about was asset management. Know what you have, know when it has to be replaced or fixed, and have it all spelled out so you could stay on top of things before they get turning into big, expensive things. You get them when they're small. And it makes sense to do something like that, because you're running that's $8 million business or something here, and that's quite a bit.
The other ask is transitioning the zoning administrator position from a zoning administrator to more of a planner. That would put Preston at full-time. It would be adding him to 30 to 32 hours, which is not a ton more hours. It's basically giving him 6 to 8 more hours a week, but it does put him into a full-time position. He would be looking for a stipend reimbursement for a medical plan that he already has. So it would not be getting onto the town's health insurance plan. Where that shift would be really helpful for Chester is, a lot of people don't realize there is a lot happening in that office in a tiny little town like Chester. Taking him to a planner position, which is what he is. He is a planner by trade, and by his life experience has been as a planner. Number one, he has a fair amount of grant writing experience. So a lot of my planning grants and those types of things I could shift over to him. He also has the economic development and a level of marketing experience. So in that part where I've really wanted to kind of take the town to the next level, and we've talked about that, I just don't have the time to get there. And I don't have the experience to educate myself to learn how to do it, to get there. So if we could have him, he's already got it. And I really think for us, for Chester, where we're at economically, I think it would be a really good win for us for not a ton more money. And I've thought about the long term, but I think sometimes you just have to make decisions based on where you're at now. So now it would be really helpful to have a full-time planner. 10 years from now, maybe not. But then when Preston retires and we look at somebody else, maybe it goes back to part-time. I don't know. But for now, I think it would be really beneficial to have him as a true planner, not a zoning administrator.
Yeah, I guess I need an explanation of what the difference between zoning administrator and a planner is.
So a zoning administrator is strictly permits. That's all they do,
Oh, okay.
is issue permits.
Clerical work.
Yep, is the clerical piece of it. A planner is your zoning administrator, but they are also involved more in, so let's take one of our recent commercial developments. There's like 4 or 5 lots over there that are for sale. A planner will work with people that are coming in, saying, hey, or they'll go seek people. So where are there some developers? How do we bring them into Chester? What can we do to make you fit into this project? They work to develop the economics of your town, not just rubber stamp the permits that come across the desk. Yeah. It's a more
Julie?
proactive role. Yeah.
You know, we've, I don't want to say complained, we've had the challenge for years about enforcement.
Yep.
Would he have more of a role with that?
It will definitely give him more hours. He is doing a fair amount of work on enforcement. Unfortunately, enforcement it's just a time. It just takes so much time. So yes, Heather, this would give him 6 to 8 more hours a week. That would help him have time to do some of that stuff.
I think he kind of got dumped on because there was a lot of enforcement issues to be,
And he knew that when I interviewed him.
and,
Yeah.
you know, he needed time to sort that out.
Correct. And now he's going off, he's getting out there with it. He is a tremendous asset to our team. We are so fortunate that we found him, I gotta tell you. He is
Actually
amazing
been-
with people. That's just his experience. So laid back. I've already heard from people what a pleasure it is to go through this process and have him there to help. It was a really, really great find for us.
He's reached out to me on a couple of different situations and asked me what I knew about it and what,
Yeah.
so he's not just strictly, he's working with people,
Yeah.
He's making it a lot more cohesive and more friendly
Yeah.
to go through the process.
Yeah.
Which is that planning part. I mean,
Correct.
it normally would just be the clerical work. Here's your paperwork, fill it out, and I'll
Yeah.
approve
Yeah.
it. But to help people, to go through it, to,
A planner just has
get people
a-
interested
yeah.
and stuff. So he sounds like he's already doing some of
Yeah,
that.
he is, because that's what he is. Preston's a planner. That's what he's always done as his career. He had just retired, for the most part, and was just looking for part-time, but he is interested in full-time again. And I think it would be a huge asset for us. That is a tremendously busy office. And I just think we're there as a community, that it's a position that's needed.
So those are 2 of the big changes.
Those are two of the big ones for me, yes. And beyond that, there's not a ton of change. A lot of stuff is status quo. It's just where the numbers fall with the pricing being what it is for COVID. So I'm not concerned at this point. I don't know that we're going to be up tremendously. Capital is certainly going to have a big impact to that. But again, I believe that our capital numbers are down, so.
Does anyone have any questions or concerns on the first review of the budget? Anything specific? Anything, anybody have any questions about?
Nope.
I'm just going to say again that we've, over the years,
Jeff, can you speak into your mic? I cannot hear you.
I'm sorry.
Thank
Over the
you.
years, we've had town managers where we would always start this weekly department head meeting, and it kind of petered out after a while. I mean, we skip weeks now and then, but I think we've stuck with it, and it's been really helpful for all of us, because, we kind of all get to feel what every other department's doing, and we work together better. And I think we get a lot more bang for our buck that way. And so I'm glad we're sticking with it. I mean, we don't have to, some weeks we don't have anything that we really need to talk about, but it's definitely, it may be 15 minutes or it may be an hour, but it's definitely been helpful to, I think, all departments that are involved, so.
Having those communication avenues open like that, where people feel free to speak and do speak, and having it on a regular basis, you're right, Jeff, I think that's really important.
But, just knowing what's going on in the other departments, you may have an idea that helps them out, or at least just knowing, so you can change what you're doing or whatever to work with it, instead of work against each other. It's been tremendously helpful to me anyway, so,
And to all the departments, it sounds like.
yeah.
Anything else on this budget before we move on? It's just the first look, and I know we'll be going back to it again
Oh, yes.
quite a few
Yeah.
times. And it looks like 3 meetings in December?
I think we will need 3 meetings in December, just because that second meeting is December 15th. It's early, it's so early in the month, that to then wait until January, I mean, those final numbers are coming in at the end of December, where you start making real decisions, you know? So this budget, I will say, this actual, the 2021 actual, is through, those numbers are through Friday. Those actuals I've updated. So before the next meeting, this warrant will be in these numbers. So we're going to keep this updated, so each version you have, so you're seeing the actuals in real time, which I think will be really helpful as we're fine tuning.
Is there a date on this as we go? So
No, but the rest of them will have
Okay.
that. They do on my one that's on my computer right now. I noticed it after I printed them. Yeah.
Number 1.
Yeah, and I know one of the things that Lee emailed and asked about was if I could show on here kind of the impact to the tax rate as we move along. I'm a little afraid to do that.
Yeah,
Just because if we throw that out there and somebody latches on to that, and then there's a change at the end, that's my only fear. But certainly, Lee, as we're fine tuning and get closer to, like, when you're going to be approving the budget and making final decisions, I'll throw that number on here as we get closer to what that number might represent.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
but certainly right now, without the capital numbers, it's going to be
Yeah, it's a bonus.
dramatically different, yeah.
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 All right. The budget journey is going to continue.
Yes, it
Any-
is.
Anybody else, any questions before we move on?
Anything you want to see, or any more detail you want on any particular items, or?
No, I think it's a good idea to have it spread out more, because sometimes when you try to jam so much into a meeting,
Yeah.
you know, it's only so many departments at a time,
Yeah.
then you can address it a little better and digest it a little better, and
Yep,
make better decisions, hopefully.
It gives us a good idea of where we're heading right now. I mean, the final numbers aren't in there, but it gives you a really good idea of what next year is going to look like. The only thing I thought about was the prices, the diesel, fuel, and like you said, everything else.
Yeah, there's
And
numbers that
We
are
might be a little
just-
low on some of that because, I mean, gas is
Well,
$3.50.
I've already, both my departments have already been affected by
yep,
parts
Parts.
in material.
Yeah.
yep.
And we use a lot of parts and a lot of material and a lot of diesel fuel too. So, I mean, it's going
It
to
is.
have its effect.
Yep, yep.
All right. Not hearing any more questions or comments, we'll go on to new business, future agenda items. Anybody have any suggestions or requests for future agenda items? Lee, I see your hand up.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I've been approached by several people in the last month, or 2 weeks anyway, about wondering if there's any possibility that we could locate a dog park in our town, whether it's on, wherever it might be. I mean, we have had lots of new people move to Chester, and I guess there are more dogs around, and several people have raised their hand. And as I said to one who's a good friend of mine, let me talk about it tonight. We could put it on an agenda. Maybe they would like to have a group of people come and talk about it. And we can think about ideas about where it might be, you know, within walking distance of places. You know, so I think that's a request I've had recently.
So I had a lady come in today, this afternoon, to speak with me about this. This is not the first time. Over the past several years, this has been bashed around. It's just never gotten up and running. Matt McCarthy has had several people come to him. So her and I had a good conversation. She left with the idea that she was going to gather the group that she knows who are interested in this. I let them know some of the hurdles and questions that would be asked, that would be talked about, so that they could think through that. They're going to assemble some costs. They have been to multiple dog parks, so they're going to kind of put together what they feel probably would work well for Chester. Being modest, I asked them to please be modest about what we're talking about to begin with, and some potential funding ideas we talked through. So they're off having those conversations, putting together some ideas. I've given them the list of town land that we looked at a little while ago as potential. This is the town land that's potentially available. So they're going to do some research, come up with a proposal, come back to me when they're ready. We'll fine tune, and then we'll bring it to the board. So
Oh, that sounds great, Julie.
that's
Thank
where
you.
that's.
Yeah, what a great idea. I just think it's a lot of neat things happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, particularly the person who spoke most to me about it said, they're traveling up to Rutland, or they're traveling up to White River, or they're going down to Brattleboro. And wouldn't it be nice for them to be able to have something here, whether it's leasing a place? It doesn't need to be a free thing. It could be, however it's built up.
Yep.
And within walking distance of our town
Wow.
center.
I'm curious about what a dog park entails. I mean, I've heard the word before, and I guess
They
I've
have
seen
Ferris
some
wheels
pictures
for
and
the
stuff, but I
dog
guess it would
and-
be different for different places.
Yeah,
but-
it's more of just a fenced area, really,
Right.
that you can go, and some places are quite elaborate with them, and some are just a big squared fenced area, but where people who maybe live in town,
Yeah.
who don't live
Right.
like I do, or Lee does, or Jeff does, where you can just go run, a place where they can come in town, they walk their dog, can take them off leash, let them run,
Yep.
they sit and visit, blah, blah, blah,
They put one
There-
in
there,
on
Arnie?
103 near.
Hang in there,
Ludlow.
Heather, hang in, go ahead.
Okay.
I said I think they just put one in up
in Ludlow.
in Ludlow
They did. Yeah,
last year or this year.
yeah.
Heather, you had something to say?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Sorry, Heather.
That's okay.
Sometimes Zoom is always a little behind.
It's Zoom, for sure.
Let's go, we can think up more things to talk
Fighting
about.
chance here.
All right, so that's a good suggestion for a future agenda item, and I guess these folks are going to get back to you first, so we have an idea of what we're talking about.
Yep, they're going to get some details together and do some research and come up with a few locations we'll talk through, and they're going to come back in when they have that together, and then we'll present
Excellent.
it.
I like projects that are initiated by the citizens of the town
Absolutely.
that want to be involved and to accomplish something. I think it seems like it works better sometimes when it's that way as opposed to us initiating things, because the interest is already there and the need's already there. So it kind of makes it easier for us to get behind it because there's already people involved with it.
Yeah,
Yep.
agreed.
Anything else for future agenda items? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn, and then we could go right back into, we're going to adjourn our select board meeting, and then we're going to continue with our water sewer commissioners meeting, which is right after this. But at this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn our select board meeting.
So moved.
Lee Dakin's the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Jeff's the second.
Heather, that was your
close. No one
chance.
answered for a second. I think we were going to be staying for a while. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
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 And we'll work right into our water sewer commissioners meeting. The first item on the agenda, and that's Jeff is going out to the microphone out in the stands here. You do have a lot of hats, Jeff. So the first item on our agenda is citizens' comments for our water sewer commissioners meeting. If there's somebody in the audience that would like to address the water sewer commissioners regarding an item that is not on the agenda, now would be the time to do so. Hearing no citizens' comments, we'll go right into our water budget review. And I guess Julie and Jeff will be handling this one.
Sure. Water is not a huge change in revenue. We're anticipating fairly the same revenue. Expenses are up. I will let Jeff talk to his expenses and needs for water. The only two missing numbers in the water budget is the workers' comp and the property liability insurance. Those numbers are not in yet from the league. We should be getting them any day, so those numbers will get filled in once we have them. But I'll just let Jeff talk about what he is feeling or needs for the water department this year.
Right. I will say that I've been pretty happy over the last 10 years or so. I've always managed to stay under budget on both departments, and I'm not so sure it's going to happen this year because of the way things have happened. But I'm sure it'll be covered. But also as everybody knows, we hired another man to kind of work into my position, hopefully in a year and a half, 2 years. And his salary and his benefits are going to be probably the biggest cost added on here. And I've dropped as many of the line items as I could, but some of the costs in here, which will be reimbursed for because I put a bunch of money in pipe and all this work over to the town garage, putting in the sprinkler line and the service line, and also it's going to be the same in the water, wastewater, putting in those tanks and everything. We had an estimate of about 15,000. I don't think they're going to, it may be up to 16 for the tanks install and stuff. It's taking longer than we anticipated, a few snafus here and there. But the engineer's supposed to come tomorrow and test both of those systems so we can clean up and we can get our part out of there. They poured they cut a ditch, put the new drain in the floor in there, and that was, all the pipes been installed, and they poured the concrete yesterday morning, so that's all poured back, so they started putting up forms, for the walls and stuff inside, so they're starting to make headway inside there. I haven't figured it all out. I'm gonna have to get all the figures. I gave Julie some of the costs, and it's gonna be put under line items, but when this is all over with, I'll itemize everything and get it to Julie so we know, including our man hours that we put in over there for both water and wastewater. So, but yeah, the water is already, we're getting pretty close for this year. And you said this is good from what, Friday?
Water and sewer is not updated.
Oh,
So
okay.
water is third quarter. Water is September 30th.
No, something else came out of here because
There may have been one, two things added, but this wasn't done through February. But focusing on the 2022 budget piece,
yep.
one of the big increases, of course, is the addition of Wayne as part-time water, part-time sewer, and the water truck.
Water
You
truck.
wanna talk about that? Yeah.
Forgot to mention that.
Yeah.
The way things have been going, it's speaking personally, they're giving high prices for trade-ins, so I'm expecting to get a pretty good price for a trade-in for the water truck. I want to get a crew cab, so obviously we've got more people, and my last two trucks that I've had, I made them last 13 years, and one of them I had a utility box, which was very handy for tools, but it didn't hold up. And I had that refurbished twice. And then when I bought this truck, I figured it wasn't worth it, so I just bought toolboxes or whatever. But this time I'm learning as I go, hopefully. But I'm gonna have a toolbox in the bed. I don't need to haul a lot of stuff, but I need a place to put my tools and the cover and more room in the cab. But the prices that I've seen for a crew cab with Dodge and Ford are about $32,000. And I figure, they always have President's Day sales in February. I can do some shopping then and see if the prices are down even more and what I can get for a trade-in. I'm thinking I'm gonna get, at least, $15,000 to $20,000 for that truck. It's not in bad shape, but it's not what I need right now, so. And it's 10 years old, it's not like I'm rushing it, but when I took over, they were trading those trucks out every 5 to 7 years. And I've been extending them and making them last with maintenance and taking care of them, but.
So Jeff, when I first saw this as a water truck, I was thinking a tanker, but you're talking about a pickup truck.
Pickup truck for
No,
water, yes.
maybe I should put utility truck, you know?
Okay.
It's for the water
Right, yeah.
department.
No, I kind of figured that out over the last couple of minutes.
If we could get a tanker for 25,000, that would be amazing.
Great.
Oh, and back to the manpower
zero.
thing, which is kind of Julie's point with the facilities manager. Wayne has been a huge asset because he's a master electrician, and he has saved not just the sewer department and water department with his knowledge and his abilities, but coming in here, Julie thought she was gonna have to wait to get the hall lights done. And Wayne, with his connections, found those light fixtures for $51.
Yep.
And so.
And then the ones that are going in the hallway are right there on the back, Lee.
And
Oh, on the stairway?
Yeah.
Sweet.
They're here.
it's planned, but you know, we've just been hammered, and thank God it hasn't snowed, because
Yeah.
for all of our departments, we've been trying to get caught up on stuff, and if it snowed, it only complicated things a lot, so. But we have done a tremendous amount of projects this year, and that's one of the reasons why our spending is up, but we're saving money in the long run, I know we are, and I wouldn't spend money unless I was sure it was gonna save us money, so. And on the wastewater end, one of the big things is I gotta get new DO probes for next year to put in the tanks. That helps our processes. They're like $5,000 a piece, but it's gonna have to be a new controller and new probes. And Wayne can install those too, so instead of hiring somebody to come, that sells them to us, to come in for $1,500 to install them, he's gonna be able to do that.
And the only real increase in sewer is, again, Wayne part-time. Wayne is divided between water and sewer.
two departments.
Correct. So that's the increase that you see in the sewer budget.
Yep.
Him and his benefits, retirement, all that gets divided between the two.
And he's been doing a good job as like my second in command, and the other two are good workers, and I can tell him something and he gets it, and he makes sure that it gets done. I don't have to go around and check everything they do. So it's been a huge asset in time management too, so. We were lucky.
We were very lucky. We've been very lucky twice with the two
Right,
additions
so-
we have to the town.
Working out really well.
Very, very blessed,
And I
yes.
know everybody says, well, it's costing more money. Well, the money that it's saving us, we can't really figure it all out, but I can see it. With his connections with the electrical suppliers, in fact, one of these things, I told Julie about this. We had a battery go dead in our portable sampler, and to get one was $202 is what, out of the book. It was in a riveted case. He drilled out the rivets, took the battery out, and matched it up. It was an $18 battery.
Expensive case.
So, you know, stuff like that, he's got more knowledge than me, and he's been saving us. He's not afraid to jump in there and when he thinks something needs to be adjusted.
It's an expensive item. Water and sewer are two utilities that are expensive to
And they're very
provide.
necessary,
And,
you know?
yeah, and the things, like everything else lately,
Yeah.
the price of everything is going up.
And that's the other thing is I've been running on one pump on my main pump station. I've been waiting for a volute to come in. It's been ordered for 5 months. It was supposed to be here Friday. It's still not here. So, and I keep calling the supplier and he says, I'm trying to track it. I don't know where it is, but I really need to get it in there. I have one down there that I can flip over, but it's not it's not specifically made for that side, because they both go in different directions on the two pumps, so it could be used, but I don't want to use it if I don't have to, and, because I want to put it in the other side. But, you know, some of the parts that we can't get a hold of right now, it's like, well, the valve job on Main Street, it didn't get completed because I'd already used my spare parts, and I always keep at least one spare part for whatever I do. 3 months to get another one. So after we got down in there and found out we needed a different part than we had to fill it all back in and run it the way it is until we can get one, and I still haven't got the parts. And the price of like valves and stuff is going crazy. It's unbelievable.
That's when that supply chain issue hits home. When they talk about it, it's probably sitting in the harbor in LA somewhere or whatever on the dock in one of the containers and stuff. It's affecting everything.
We would have been in a lot worse trouble if I hadn't started years ago, making sure I have
Yeah, at least, yeah.
motors and pumps there that I can use if I have to. So,
It's a good policy to have for sure,
Yeah.
especially in the times we are now. When I look at budgets like this and the prices and everything going up, and we haven't had anything, I mean, I don't even like to talk about increasing rates and stuff, but eventually that has to become at least part of the conversation. Now, whether we do it or not is another thing, but to compare, you know, what you're paying, is it a lot compared to other towns this size, or is it less than other places? Is it fair? I mean, I know we went through this with the water a while ago, and there was a study on it and
Yep.
stuff, but I just want to make sure we don't have to, in a couple of years, decide, oh, man, we have to jump up there, as opposed to small
Just like-
incremental.
yeah.
I think next year we can look at it a little closer, but like I said, the last 10 years, both of my departments have been under my budgets. So I've been, you know, I've been keeping it down, but it's just, this year's been abnormal, I guess.
We had raised them, you know, over time, over those 3 years, to the point where we needed to be for repayment of the water bonds. So I think that we're good. They were looked at 2 years ago. So I think we're fine now, but certainly in 2022, we could take another look and make sure, Sil and I can dig through the numbers and make sure we're.
That was specifically the water.
That was water.
Right.
Sewer was not looked at, and probably of the two to look at would be, sewer would be the
Yeah,
first.
I mean, yeah,
Because
I'm not
one
worried
of,
about water right now, but.
But they're related. I mean, your sewer bill is a percentage of the water bill?
correct. Your water bill is, yes, yeah, there's a relationship between the two. It's not a percentage. There's a maximum percentage we can't exceed according to the policy. But sewer, we need to look at in 2022, because one of the things that we'll start looking at over the next probably year and a half, 2 years, is the design and upgrades
For
to the sewer
facilities.
plant.
Right.
So if we start that design work, it's slated for me to start thinking about that in '23. Because the engineering, I can imagine, is going to be a year and a half. I want to really take a deep look at not just what we need now, but economically, where do we want to be? And are there increases or improvements we need to make to our sewer plant to, you know, if we had another, like, I'm not going to say Drews, but if we had another half a Drews come in, we couldn't take that. Well, is that something that we want? If it is, then what are the improvements we need to make? I mean, that's kind of an extreme example, but you know what I mean. So I think we need to look at that, and it's going to take, you know, a good study from an engineer to help us and guide us in that process. So I was planning to start that in '23. Bonds are paid off in '27. So we would be ready for a readjustment there in '28. So
27, the bond?
bond is paid off in '27.
Yeah, one of the things, I mean, your sewer bill is based on your water usage.
The water usage, correct?
So that's where you figured in the volume.
Oh,
But
okay.
The best thing we did, and I can't remember exactly when we did it, but we started the base rate thing. Because that stabilized both the budgets.
Yep.
When before it was strictly on usage, and it would be all over the place, depending on what kind of year you had, so.
Yep.
Does anyone have any questions or concerns for Jeff regarding the water or sewer department budgets? Well, it's our first view of this one, too.
Yep.
So I'm
This
sure
one
we'll be
won't have a lot more changes.
looking at it again in the future, and thanks for your time, Jeff, and thanks for the update. And would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Thank you, Lee. Lee is the motion. A second?
I'll second it.
And a third.
Henry thirds.
That's Henry. I was trying to get to the mute button so I